mean, there's some recent data out through the sagebrush conservation design effort that shows that when we look at the loss of our best sagebrush habitats and what is contributing to that, invasive annual grasses are the number one driver of loss of invasive annual of sagebrush ecosystems. So things that once had sagebrush, perennial bunch grasses, native forbs that have now become either totally invasive annual grass monocultures or a heavy understory of invasive annual grasses underneath the sagebrush. That is the big problem. And there are other issues in sagebrush country that need to be addressed as well. But this is eating our lunch at a biome scale. And there's local successes and that how that problem obviously varies in space and time and how pronounced it is. But if we don't address this challenge, much of our other conservation and management work just really doesn't matter because there's this intense pulse and pressure from this threat that has to be dealt with in some way if we're going to make any ground in our current against our current losses of sagebrush habitat.
Invasive annual grasses dominate the landscape one way or the other, both by how they fill in the spaces between the native grasses and forbs and shrubs, and to how they make that landscape function. Their presence on the landscape changes how we as the Bureau of Land Management have to manage that landscape, but also how we have to react to other changes on that landscape. For instance, if there is a dominance of invasive annual grasses in an area that has recently burned, we're going to have to focus a lot more energy and resources, financial resources into that area to hopefully reduce that fire return interval and to make sure that that situation doesn't carry into other landscapes that are not yet as affected by that invasive annual grass. It might also mean that we have to change what we allow to occur in those landscapes. We might decide that due to the presence of invasive annual grasses, we reduce some other opportunities for uses. So having invasive annual grasses on the landscape is somewhat of an ecological disaster. We've talked a lot about that, but it also becomes an economic and procedural disaster to a certain degree for us. So if we miss opportunities to manage and to defend the core, as we've talked about, then we miss opportunities to effectively manage the other resources that are out there on public lands and the other uses that rely on those public lands.